Michael Silberman, thank you so much for agreeing to talk with me today. You are the head of the Greenpeace Mobilization Lab. Could you briefly explain what that institution does, what its mission is?
Sure. The Mobilization Lab at Greenpeace is a team of people around the world working with Greenpeace internationally to help the organization shift into a new era of campaigning, make this transition into a modern campaigning landscape where we now know that anyone can raise money, can lead, can build campaigns, mobilize other people. It's a very different world than we grew up in and many other organizations grew up in 40 plus years ago, where the main power brokers of change were big institutions or well-branded institutions or professionalized campaigners who had access to media or influence.
So, Michael, based on your work looking across the various Greenpeace organizations around the world, 30 of which use engaging network software, which we're very proud of, you get to see the different methods of campaigning. Is there in fact one common Greenpeace mobilization, Greenpeace methodology for campaigning, or is there tremendous variability from country to country?
Yeah, there's no way to generalize. There are certain principles that we find work, and that are important, and so we have our anatomy of what a people-powered campaign looks like, what it means to put people at the center of a story, what it means to be nimble and responsive to the news cycle and to campaign with people where they're at. And those are things that we do see working across issues and culture and countries. The things that are different, of course, are a society or a community's appetite for, in terms of privacy or rules, in terms of how you can contact people and things like that. So, in some countries you can essentially send a text message to every mobile subscriber, whether or not they've opted into messages for you or not. So, and those are things that are not translatable everywhere.
Michael, you have been in this field of digital engagement and campaigning and fundraising since 2003, when you were with the Howard Dean presidential campaign in the USA, and then you worked for years with a well-known consulting firm called Echo & Company. Now you're with Greenpeace. You've seen a lot of changes. What's the biggest single change that you've seen in all those years in the way that charities and advocacy groups conduct their digital activities?
I mean, 10 years ago we did not have nearly as many tools in as many people's hands as we do now. So 10 years ago there was, Facebook was just a glimmer in the eye of some Harvard students. YouTube hadn't been on the scene. Online video was very expensive and difficult. And today, of course, we have supercomputers in people's hands where they can be streaming video from events and networking with each other instantaneously, and the connectivity is dramatic. So the democratization of technology is dramatic, and so that really changes how an organization has to think about their campaigns in a world where anyone can start a campaign, mobilize others, raise money. Of course, that's different than when you were the only people who could initiate a campaign. We've seen similar transitions happen in the media world when publications or newspapers have had to figure out what does it mean when they're not the only people who can be journalists, when other people can take photos and break news faster than a professional institution, but they've adapted to a new landscape where they can, in their case, make news with people and aggregate content in the same way that organizations like Greenpeace are now thinking about how do we add to the unique skills that we have as campaigners, but campaign with people and open up more roles for more people to take on bigger pieces of work.
Michael, as you look across the whole nonprofit charity advocacy sector, what are the big obstacles, the big challenges that you see organizations are facing?
I think the biggest challenge groups are facing now is how to set themselves up for success and to break down specifically by breaking down some of the departmental silos and divisions that have evolved over time naturally. If I'm an activist or supporter for your cause, I may have retweeted something, rebroadcasted some content, reshared some content, as well as donated, attended an event. In many organizations, all that information is still organized separately. And it may look or appear that I've only done one thing in terms of that volunteer department or the fundraising department. And they may not therefore be engaging with me as the whole person that has done 3 things with the organization over the past year. So the challenge now is to integrate that data, to pull teams together, to start thinking more holistically about supporters as whole people who don't have multiple departments in their heads when they engage with the organizations. And that process has been really powerful, we've seen, of bringing teams and people together, not only to work better together across departments on behalf of supporters and activists, but to figure out how to also start bringing data together so they can ask better questions and create better relationships, more meaningful, more engaging relationships with supporters, and deepen their involvement.
So what is the one thing you wish you'd figured out many years before?
I wish I had learned sooner the importance of approachability and likability in hiring digital leadership, mobilization directors, even communication directors, anyone who is overseeing or responsible for digital engagement activities. What I've found is that in organizations or cultures where the person who's responsible for supporter engagement, when that person is not approachable, or when people aren't excited to go find that person and bring them into a conversation, conversations stall, innovation stalls, and the organization culture is not able to achieve its fullest potential, versus a place that hires leadership that has those qualities of approachability, likability, someone you just want to work with. They don't have to be the smartest, they just have to be the person who has that can-do attitude and is eager to help other people through the process of understanding this new landscape.
What is one strategy or tactic that nonprofits could use instantly that would measurably change their results between now and the end of the year?
One thing most every organization can do is ensure they have Google Analytics goals in place. I think most organizations have the box checked on Google Analytics, somewhere it's set up, but in most cases I've seen it doesn't also include all those microsites, some of the third-party fundraising pages. Great if it does, but every organization can take the extra, day or two to ensure that they can see a supporter's engagement from the very beginning all the way through to the end of the process, because that is ultimately the foundation for being able to ask any kind of creative question and come up with new tests or new ways to improve their work. And the product, in terms of Google Analytics and goal setting and being able to track all kinds of things that beyond just the very basics of the website, has expanded dramatically in recent years.
Michael, I just want to thank you for talking with me today.
Sure, thanks, Clint.
Thanks, Michael.